is a presentation of the Match Talk Podcast Network. It's time for the ODU Wrestling Monarch Mattcast, a show dedicated to all things related to the Old Dominion Wrestling program. On the web at monarchmattcast.com. Now, here's your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, and 2004 ODU alumnus, Jason Bryant.
Episode 42 of the Old Dominion Wrestling Monarch Mattcast. Jason Bryant here with you as we've wrapped up the college season today, talking with Associate Head Coach Mike Dixon. We're going to recap the MAC championships, the NCAA championships, and look ahead to this off season. And, of course, tell you a little bit about the Old Dominion Wrestling Golf Tournament, which is coming up on May 5th at noon at Sewell's Point. Matter of fact, let's just start with that right now because that's the fresh thing that's coming into our mind, Coach Dixon. This golf tournament's been a big part of the Booster Club and raising money for the wrestling program. And what are we looking forward to for another year of bad golf from some people and great golf from others?
Yeah, wrestlers tend to wrestle, work hard, but the skill in other areas, I mean, they wrestle for a reason. But, yeah, May 5th, we're going to have I think this is 13 straight years probably, our Takedown Club Golf Tournament. And basically this is a critical part of our program. It allows the proceeds from this go directly to our enhancement account, and basically that helps us do some other things that we were not able to do outside of our budget, and you know, kind of this arms race type of era we're in with schools and all that stuff. You know, we got to do what we can to obviously keep up with the big boys and stay competitive, as well as doing the best we can to make sure we're taking care of our student athletes, you know, nutritionally, mental health wise, physically, all those things. So this tournament allows us to do some things where we're able to help our student athletes in a positive way, and it's very critical to the lifeline of our program, if you will. And it's been a great event for several years, and we generally got a lot of support. And obviously, anybody that can, whether you can golf or not, just coming out, it's generally a great event. And if for some reason you can't come out, obviously any gift or donation is much appreciated. But you know, we're looking forward to it. It's Cinco de Mayo, so hopefully we can get people's days start out a little bit of golf before they get into whatever festivities happen on Cinco de Mayo.
I'm not going to tell you what I used to do on Cinco. As a matter of fact, I am going to tell you on Cinco de Mayo. When I was let's see, I'm trying to think what year, which freshman year it was at Old Dominion. This doesn't really help your recruiting pitch, but it was Cinco de Mayo, and 4400 Club was still open. Mr. T's Tacos, a.k.a. Speedy's, a.k.a. whatever it was right behind it. And it was like, this is the last day, because Cinco de Mayo fell on my last day of exams my first year in college. And I'm like, all right, what do I do on Cinco de Mayo? So I went out and bought a sombrero and went to Mr. T's Tacos for 44-cent tacos because it fell on a Wednesday. It was the perfect thing to do right before an exam. I'm not going to advocate that, but anyway, that's just my little ODU Cinco de Mayo story. Other than the year
How did that exam go? How did that exam go?
Hey, I passed.
All right.
I passed.
That's all that matters.
Did not have to take the course again, did not have to use grade forgiveness for that particular course.
There we go.
It was an elective that, anyway, I sold the book back for $12. It was like $80. That we're not even going to get in the textbook discussion. But with golf, now for those listening that know, Mike, when did you stop playing in this tournament? Or did you ever even attempt to?
I've never started. So.
Okay, yeah, because I know this, because I'm going to throw you under the bus right now. There's a reason Dixon doesn't play in this golf tournament, folks. Is his first year at Old Dominion, I was still in the area, and I and Corey Ace go to play, and Corey used to be on staff, and we play at the public course in Norfolk, and it was just I think Dixon maxed out every single hole if you actually count attempted swings. If you're playing by the rules of golf, he got like a 20 on every hole. So there's a reason Dixon does not play golf. But anyway, information on that. May the 5th, Sewell's Point. You can get a hold of Mike at mjdixon@odu.edu. If you can't make it, a couple things to do. I haven't been able to make it in a number of years. So what I do in my case is I'll sponsor a hole. And those of you with businesses or things that want to sponsor a hole, you could also get a hold of Coach Dixon again that way, mjdixon@odu.edu. Cinco de Mayo. Anyway, as we move into wrestling things, because I know you don't want to talk about golf anymore because, dude, you suck.
That's right. Golf is just bad.
This is the one thing I can probably tell Dixon's like, dude, you suck. And he'd be like, yep, I'm horrible.
I agree. I do agree.
All right, let's circle back into the wrestling championship situation. Let's first go back to the MAC. With 6 freshmen in the lineup, you didn't really know what you were going to get in some of these postseason situations. Last year's tournament was kind of disastrous. This year's tournament, following it through the course, like, hey, all right, not a terrible finish with basically a group of unheralded guys and a couple studs that get carrying your way. I mean, what were the general thoughts about how the team performed at the MAC championships?
Yeah, I think for the type of season we had and with our current roster, I think we did have a good performance. We had been having good practices, and generally when you're having good practices, you're going to have a good performance. And we felt everybody was in the right state of mind. And, we had some guys that were struggling during the year ended up turning some results. I know Steve Simpson, beat a kid that beat him during the year. I think Will Hilliard was in that same situation. At 157, we had a kid that really didn't have a whole lot of matches in, trying to score some points for us. 133, Madrigal, didn't really have the type of season that he wanted, but, he flipped a result as well. Budak wrestled tough. Hayes, I thought, wrestled real well, and a couple, Madrigal and Hayes, they didn't earn bids throughout the season, but they ended up taking spots from people. So that's how they were able to go on to nationals. So like I said, I think obviously you want to bring home trophies, but I think for the type of season we had and what our current roster was, I think it was a positive step in the right direction. And I think, we got to continue to work and build, not obviously all those things, but the guys wrestled, overall pretty well, and they competed hard, and that's basically all you can ask for, especially at that time of year. And we were healthy, which is another big thing. Nobody was really banged up or anything like that, but it was a good performance, and we're looking to build upon that. And we ended up getting half our team out, which going in at some point during the season, if you said, hey, you're going to end up with 5 national qualifiers, I'm sure some people probably would have rolled their eyes and be like, you got to be kidding me. But, that just shows what we are capable of. Now we got to work on being consistent and being able to bring it out every time we step on the mat.
Yeah, you talked about Madrigal and Hayes, and one of the big results there was Madrigal majoring Cam Kelly, who had a great season as a freshman. He didn't even qualify. And then goes through, and it was that tight match. And I mentioned this on the previous show about the Ernesty quarter where Madrigal was winning that match at the beginning of the year when he got hit with a spladle. So that being 1-0, you guys obviously thought that was a winnable match going in, despite the fact that Ernesty had the fall earlier in the year.
Yeah, we were confident on Madrigal's ability, and we definitely liked the draw. And Madrigal was in on Ernesty's legs several times. He was in on his legs, at the buzzer for the takedown. So after that match, I kind of pulled the kid aside and put him in the back, and I said, hey, if you wrestle like this all weekend, I said, you're going to go to nationals. So I said, there's no question about that. And the kid continued to have a pretty solid weekend, and he ended up doing what he was supposed to do and getting the next weekend. So it just kind of shows what he's capable of. But again, with a young team, it's consistency is one of your biggest obstacles, and it's teaching the guys how to kind of stick to the routine. And you got to kind of be we pretty much tell them you got to be a dull person and stick to your routine. You should have certain habits and routines, and you stick with them. And if you're consistent, good things are going to happen. So he had a good performance that weekend, and it's what he's capable of, but we got to get him to obviously be consistent throughout the entire year, 24/7, 365.
Yeah, we'll circle back on that weight class later. As you mentioned, Mikey Hayes wasn't an auto bid for the conference, but came through. Actually, if he wrestled to seed, he was in a good spot, went into overtime with Steve Blythe. Showed some tenacity through it. Actually, we'll talk about his nationals performance here in a minute, but getting the bid through. Selden Wright needed an at-large spot. Had a basically disastrous placement match after losing to Steyer from Northern Iowa in the semifinals. Then Jack Decco wins his third MAC championship, a tough weight class in the conference. Guys like Jordan Ellingwood and Drew Foster. Let's just talk a little bit about what's it mean for Jack to have had a third MAC championship.
The MAC's a tough weight, and Jack's had to beat some tough kids. I think just about every year there's been a kid that's been an All-American that he's had to beat. And, Jack, to win, I mean, it doesn't matter what conference you are in Division I, to be a three-time conference champion, that's saying something, and especially when we're in the likes of it with a Missouri, a Northern Iowa, Central Michigan, teams that are generally in the top 15, top 20 year in, year out. For someone to say, yeah, I've won 3 of these titles, that just kind of shows the type of work that he puts in to his craft. And Jack is relentless, and he's a creature of habit, and he's got a good routine, and he's confident in himself. And he for probably the last 2 months, my man was on fire, and I didn't think anybody was going to beat him, and it didn't matter when he went to overtime. I think as a staff, none of us were very concerned because we knew Jack's conditioning was at a peak condition, and we knew that basically he was going to be able to wear out anybody, So when that match ended up going to overtime, it was just one of those things like, okay, let's just go get another takedown. Let's just seal the deal. So, Jack was on fire, and that was a good thing. So, good for Jack.
And 197 pounds, Kevin Beasley finishing runner-up to Jaden Cox, who ultimately, again, finished his career as a 3-time national champ, 4-time All-American. Oh, and he's got like an Olympic bronze medal hanging around his neck. But, again, Beasley got over the hump of the Sean Scott situation, which goes back to, like, grade school, and, beat him to get on. I mean, what do you do when you know that you're like, all right, Beasley, you got this guy again? How do you coach that?
You just sit back, and, I mean, there's nothing really as a coach you can do. It's basically more just getting Beasley in his mind right and just getting him confident that, hey, you've put in the work, you've put in the time, you will get this kid eventually. And, he's finally able to do it in the dual meet this year. And I think that just kind of mentally put him over the hump to where, okay, I can do this. Because sometimes when you haven't accomplished something, at times your mind will start to wander. But I think Kevin's head was in a great place all year to where, maybe previously some thoughts may have creeped into his head about a little bit of doubt where he's more mature this year, and he was able to block out some of those things and just have a lot of self-confidence and self-belief in himself and his training. And, like I said, he was able to finally overcome a lot of humps that he wasn't able to in the past. And, things worked out well for him. Obviously, he didn't win the conference championship against Cox, but I think that was one of the matches where I asked him kind of before the match, I said, well, what are we going to do in the second period? I said, you can go down or pick neutral. And he's like, no, I'm gonna go down. So he's very confident in his ability, and, we weren't able to get out from Cox, but, I think it's just one of those things that it was a conference tournament. It's a learning situation. The big show was coming up in 2 weeks, and that was kind of the situation where, you got to be on point by then. But, it's just, let's try and pick some things. Let's try and see what works against Cox. And if not, let's go back to the drawing board. So, he wrestled well conference tournament. Like I said, his mind was in a great place all year, and he just believed in himself and believed in his training. Good things happened for him.
All right, now we'll just use that as a natural transition into the NCAA championships in St. Louis. Again, good crowd from Old Dominion showed up, had a chance. It was weird. I think it's 3 or 4 straight times that the Old Dominion Wrestling Booster Social has happened. It's been at the same place that I coordinate my media association social. It's like, wait, what? Because the old place closed down. We're like, all right, we'll try to find some other place. And then Charlie Church and Bill Kelly, hey, it's at the Budweiser Brewhouse in Ballparkville. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's the same place I've got mine. So it just, I guess great minds are thinking here in terms. So I got to see some of the alumni and the parents up there beforehand. But as we go into St. Louis, We'll stick with the Kevin Beasley train because he was the All-American. He was the fourth straight year. The Monarchs have had an All-American wrestler that ties the school record, which was set between 2008 and 2011. So both 4-year runs of All-Americans have come under this current coaching regime. And Kevin Beasley, the key, and I circled it on my bracket, the key match, the way the draws worked, I said for him to be an All-American, he's got to beat Aaron Studebaker. And he did so with a nice little cradle. Yeah.
Beasley's always dangerous, and it was one of those situations we did like his draw going into the tournament, and it was one of those situations where things weren't going very well, especially in that second period. But Kevin just kept wrestling. And again, it's all about, like I said, his mind was in a great place all year. He kept believing. He kept wrestling hard for 7 minutes. He finally got a reversal. And then, when Kevin gets on top of somebody, he's very, very dangerous. He's dangerous in this room. He's dangerous out in competition. And he was at a point where he was wrestling well, and, he seized upon an opportunity, and, he was able to obviously capitalize on it. And bonus points are always appreciated, especially at the national tournament. So, and he was able to get a couple of falls, and that helped us a little bit in the team standings. But I think you're right. That match was very, very critical because that put him in the quarters. And, obviously the quarters didn't turn out how we liked it. But when he dropped into the consolation bracket, he obviously had a matchup where he had to beat a freshman, which when you're dealing with a kid that's really a fifth-year junior, if you will.
Yeah. Him and Tanner Hall will be old enough to rent cars next year. Which, by the way, if you don't know, you got to be 25 to rent a car. I don't really know how old Kevin is, but it makes the joke funnier.
Yeah. Well, Hall might be collecting Social Security pretty soon here, but in those rounds, I like the matchup where you got the veteran versus the guys there. It was both their first times there, but Kevin had been in situations before, and we certainly liked that matchup, and it ended up coming out in a positive manner for us. And Kevin was obviously able to place because of that. So that quarterfinal match was huge. And had he not won that, then there were some tough guys, and just anytime you place, you're going to have to beat somebody good, and Kevin was able to do that. And it was a goal he was able to achieve. And one of the first people he ran to was his high school coach. His high school coach was kind of sitting Matt's side right there, so that was good that he was able to reach out to them. And I know that was a very important, special moment for both of those guys. So it was a good thing.
Yeah, one thing, it was interesting it set that up because I'm watching, for those who don't know, I was the announcer, so I'm paying attention to everything that's going on. It's like, okay, who's going to be here? Who's going to be here? And what led to that match, and when you said his first time there, you mean first time in that placement round because Kevin had been there prior, but with
Correct.
Cash Wilkie from Iowa, and this is the kid that Kevin beat to earn All-American honors, wasn't even supposed to be in the tournament. He was an injury replacement for Jacob Smith of West Virginia. Then comes through the match before, he's wrestling Frank Mattias from Penn, and this is a guy that Beasley had beaten early in the year. And you look at it and like, that's you look at the draw coming through, you're like, ugh, Mattias a second time, that's a tough draw. A third caution in sudden victory gives the Iowa kid the win. I'd never ever seen that in my life.
Yeah, I mean, we try and tell guys, before the tournament and even while the tournament's going on, our big emphasis as a coaching staff is, hey, take care of yourself, take care of your match, and then we want them leaving the arena as soon as their match is done. Cool down, get your heart rate back down, and we want them leaving the arena because, like you said, you have no clue how these brackets are going to go. And we try and tell our guys, just because somebody's been wrestling a certain way all year, all of a sudden you get 18, 19,000 people on top of you. A lot of kids will put pressure on themselves. There could be pressure from outside sources. You don't know what's going on in their personal life. So we try and tell them, ignore the brackets. We'll tell you the time you're wrestling. We'll talk about it after every round, when you need to go back over to the facility, when you need to warm up, the approximate time you're going to be wrestling. But it's just basically a series of one-match dual meets, And, like I said, crazy things happen. And, I was a kid that, to be honest with you, you just telling me that he was an injury replacement, I didn't even know that. So good for that kid that he was able to even make it that far. When probably a week ago he wasn't even supposed to be in the tournament. So good for him that he was able to get to the All-American round. But it worked out for us. So I'll take it every day of the week.
It's also one of those situations where beating the Iowa singlet is also good for the program, regardless of who it is. You're beating the black and gold at the national championships. I mean, people are going to take notice. Oh,
sure. They've obviously got a mystique and history and tradition about themselves, and I think anytime you step on the mat with an Iowa kid, you kind of know what you're getting. You're getting a kid that's going to be well conditioned, a kid that's going to be able to hand fight very, very well, and you're going to have a battle for 7 minutes on your hands, and Beasley had a battle for 7 minutes on his hands, but he was able to come up on top. And like you said, the more times you're able to do stuff like that, like beat a kid from Iowa or beat a kid from Penn State, it's just going to help your mind where, hey, it doesn't matter where this kid's from, or it doesn't matter what other coach is in the corner, it doesn't matter the venue. I'm confident in my abilities. I'm confident in my training. I can go out and accomplish anything.
Yeah, sticking with the All-American theme here again, I mentioned that it was 4 years in a row that Old Dominion's had an All-American. Now, this from a statistical standpoint, 18 All-Americans in school history, half of those, again, under the current administration. 7 different wrestlers have earned medals at the Nationals under Coach Martin and your staff. So what's that mean from not just a recruiting standpoint, but a development standpoint? Be like, wow, it's not just been like 2 guys placing 3 and 4 times. I mean, it's been 7 different wrestlers since 2008 that have placed. Now, there are some multiple ones in there. Nicholson, multiple-time All-American, McCarty, a multiple-time All-American, but it's not just 2 kids you're hanging your program on. There's 7 of them in the past 12 years.
Sure. I think it just goes to the fact that Steve Martin has a vision, and what we try and do is align everything up with that vision to basically make sure we are one of the dominant programs in the country. And obviously we got ways to go. We thought we were going to come away with more All-Americans, and that did not happen. But to be honest with you, I don't think we're that much different than some of the teams that finished in the top 15, top 12. Obviously the teams that are in the top 10 might be a little bit different, but when you go 11 through 40 or 50 in the tournament, a lot of those teams aren't that different. It's just kind of who's on that particular weekend and who's wrestling well. And, we had certainly a couple of guys that were capable of getting on the podium. And unfortunately, it didn't work out so well for Jack. But, what we try and do is try and get these kids in a routine, try and teach them a system, get them so certain things with their wrestling and collegiate style, front headlocks, hand fighting, stuff like that, their bottom work. We want to make sure they're tight on that. But what the kids come in with their kind of go-to takedowns, that's kind of what their go-to takedowns are going to be in college. And basically what we try and do is get them better in other areas and then put them out in front of competition and hope they, excel. And, as a coach, being able to take care of some of the off-the-mat issues with them in terms of learning how so they can grow both academically, both as a person, outside of wrestling, as well as very, very critical, I think, to the on-the-mat performance. And, we try and do that, and we've had some success. Obviously, we'd like more. That's just being the selfish part. But I think it goes back to Steve Martin and his vision and what he has instilled for this program. And, we just try and align everything up, going from staff to recruits to everything to make sure those things are kind of meeting all those goals.
As we're talking about Jack, this is probably one of the more heartbreaking situations of most people. I would assume you and Coach Martin's coaching career is you got a guy who places 4th as a redshirt freshman, and then 3 of the 4 years he's at Nationals, he's got to run into a guy named Gabe Dean. He's also wrestled him at the All-Star Classic. Combined 4 losses by combined, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. It is marginal. It's crazy how close these guys were when Dean was, just then known as the Destroyer of Worlds. You've got every wrestler Jack ever lost to at the national championships was an All-American. So it's not like he's ever dropped a match that was he's had bad matches, but when you look at the draw, tiebreaker to Gabe Dean, national champion, tiebreaker to Miles Martin, national champion. Did anybody in your memory have a draw like that? That's been like, are you kidding me? We're talking millimeters, like 2 points in the tiebreakers that basically ultimately cost the guy a shot at not just the semifinals, but the podium overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. I'd find me a person that's had that draw throughout their career, at nationals. I mean, but I guess you can go back to if you want to look at basketball, Karl Malone probably has some championships if it weren't for Michael Jordan. And you can go back through history. There's probably a lot of people that would have accomplished a lot if it weren't for certain people. But Jack put everything into the sport. He put everything into his training, and it's just kind of a life lesson that sometimes you put everything in and you don't quite accomplish your goals. But, I mean, Jack is just so level-headed, and he's got a good spirit about him. He's just such a good person. He's one of my favorite athletes of all time, and obviously we wish it could have ended up where, he was a national champion at the end of his career, but that's not how the cards, went out for him this year. But like I said, I wouldn't trade Jack Decco for anybody at that weight class. It doesn't matter, how the standings ended up finishing. He's your model student athlete. He gets it done in the classroom. He gets it done in the wrestling room. He works hard in every aspect. He's got his life together. He's a very driven person. Obviously it kind of hurt him, but he's a good family man. He's got a good family. It's just he's a great person. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for him, but like I said, Jack is going to go do many, many great things in life because that kid's got an unbelievable work ethic. I can remember from the time I met him when he was a sophomore in high school. I was at Izzy's club in Illinois, and he told me as a sophomore, you need to watch out for this kid. And, we just kind of paid attention, stayed in touch. And, from there, I guess it's been 7-8 years later. We were proud of the man he's become. I'm sure his parents are extremely proud. He's going to end up with a degree here in May. So good things are happening for Jack, and good things will continue to happen for him.
One thing about the match that I do want to wonder about is the situation. Did you talk to Jack about when he's going with wrestling with Dean in the quarterfinals, and rather than try to get the one, he went for the reversal? I mean, was that something he felt like this was his opportunity to steal the match, or was it something that was like, all right, what was the mindset there from his perspective when he went reversal instead of one?
I think it was just a situation where he thought he could do it. I mean, Jack's pretty explosive, and he's got a good little switch. And like I said, it goes back to be confident in your training, be confident in your abilities, and he was confident that he could do it. We certainly going before the tournament when the draws came out. This is a quarterfinal matchup we wanted. Because we thought we were the guys that could beat Gabe Dean, and we knew there wasn't going to be a takedown. The last time they wrestled last year at the national tournament, there wasn't any takedowns. So we knew the takedowns were going to be hard to get. You can't fault somebody for being aggressive and going after it. And like I said, I'll take it every day of the week. My personal opinion, I thought it was a reversal. We tried to challenge it. It didn't work out in our favor. And we can talk about the challenge system and how they conduct it throughout the season and at the national tournament, maybe at another point in time. But, it kind of is what it is, but I don't fault the kid. And like I said, I'll take him over any 84-pounder in the country.
Not to throw excuses or sour grapes out there, but you do bring up the challenge system, and some people have made the point that certain coaches and programs get the calls, and coming from a small program, and again, this isn't going to come off like we're trying to whine about something, but it does seem like the power schools or the power programs get the benefit of the doubt in those situations. If Jack Decco's wrestled a kid from SIU Edwardsville, do you think Decco's getting a call versus it's two-time national champion Gabe Dean of Cornell, undefeated number 1 seed? So I personally, I think some of that comes into play, but just a thought. I mean, I know some people have railed on the officials for such things. The head coach at The Ohio State University has made his opinion known about the challenge process, but I call it a singlet call. So.
Yeah, I mean, the officials have a hard job, and, would I want to do their job? There's no way on earth I'd want to do their job. But,
Nope.
So, I mean, they do a good job. They got the best officials out at nationals, and I just think, in my opinion, when a challenge happens, it needs to be like other leagues do it, where an outside official is looking at it versus the one that actually made the call. Because I mean, people are biased, whatnot, and how often are you going to, in the end, admit publicly that, oh, okay, I screwed this up? Versus I think it will save people a lot of face, and plus it gives somebody that just a different set of eyes. You can look at the video. Maybe at the head table they have 2 or 3 referees where their whole job, the whole tournament, is they just look at reviews and they make a call, and based on that, it's either stands or it's reversed. And I just think that's how it needs to go versus the guy that actually made the call. Because he's already got a preconceived notion in his head of, well, this is what I saw. So it's going to be really hard to reverse something once he's already made that call. And I just think if you have another person looking at it, I think it'll give it a different perspective, a different point of view, and that might improve the replay system. So that's just something. I mean, I know the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, they all do it that way. I think the NCAA should mimic that model. Now, costs involved and all that stuff, I don't know those details or what costs that would be, but I think if we're going to have replay, let's do it, and let's do it right.
Moving forward, Mikey Hayes picked up a victory in his first trip to the national championships. And this is a story. We've had him on the show before. Kid was a walk-on, never a state champion, got his opportunity to wrestle at the national championship, picked up a victory over a guy who had majored him during the year. And what did the fabulous Freebird Michael P.S. Hayes mean to this program, other than the pro wrestling reference?
Well, like you said, Hayes, I mean, he started out as a walk-on, and to come into a Division I program as a walk-on, that's hard, because generally you're starting out at the bottom of the barrel, But that just goes to show, if you put the time in and work hard, the kid ended up being ranked, I think, in the top 25. I'm not sure if he ever cracked the top 20, but I know he beat some guys that were in the top 15 throughout the year. And if you go back to what he accomplished in his high school career versus what some other kids accomplished in his high school career, it kind of pales in comparison. But, the kid worked hard for 5 years, and when he got his opportunity, he took advantage of it, and things didn't always go his way. He was in a situation last year where, he was trying to make the team at a weight class that, I was a little concerned that if he was going to be able to wrestle 133 the entire year, and finally the decision was kind of made that this is not really in your best interest. And I know that hurt him not being able to wrestle and compete, but that time was spent, getting better wrestling wise, so he was able to not focus on weight and was able to focus on, let me get better at some skills. And it worked out well. There was a little adjustment period the first half of the year, but once he got on a roll, he was one of our rocks we could lean on in dual meets, the second half of the season. That was a good thing. That certainly helped us out in matches we were able to win. Like I said, we ended up winning 3 of our last 4 dual meets, so that was another positive that happened during the season. But he's somebody that we're going to have a hard time replacing, I'll be honest with you. So anytime you have a fifth-year senior, there's a national qualifier. That's a hole to fill in your lineup, and we're trying to go to work on that to fill that hole, so that we can have somebody again that is qualified for nationals at that weight class.
165 pounds, Selden Wright, his first trip to nationals. Probably not the best performance Selden would want to talk about in terms of what the outcomes were, but what are some things you can take away from Selden's opportunity to compete at the national championships, and how he can use this as a learning experience to get better as a junior and senior?
Well, he's seen what the big stage is about now, and he's seen what those elite guys do. He had to wrestle Logan Massa, which I don't remember what he placed at the tournament, but
he took third.
Yeah. So, and that kid's just a freshman, so that he's somebody that if he wants to win a title, that's somebody he's going to have to beat eventually. So, I'd say the gap's pretty big right now from to getting to the top of the podium, but he can close that gap, and hopefully you'll see a little bit more intensity within the workouts in terms of, okay, now I've been there. Now I see what it takes. I really have to pick up my intensity level. And basically, it all comes in practice, and that's what we tell our guys. If you don't do it in practice, it's not going to get done in competition. But sometimes some people have to go through that, and when you got young kids, you got to keep in mind Selden has not redshirted yet, so really, he's the same age as all those redshirt freshmen that are out there. Sometimes you have to go through experience before you actually learn and figure some things out that, hey, I probably do need to buckle down and tighten some of these things up, or I probably do need to make sure, I'm able to chain wrestle. I probably should be able to, when I take people down, be able to ride people, So he's got some things he needs to work on, as does, everybody else, even Beasley, because literally after Beasley's last match, when we were walking back to the hotel, he was listing off things that he needs to work on for next year. So, Beasley was already thinking ahead for next year. And, that's a senior doing that type of thing. But we hope that the guys that went to nationals, we're hoping that they're also doing the same types of things. And when you start having that starts trickling down everywhere. And that's how you get a culture. So that's kind of what we're hoping.
And finally, Alex Madrigal did qualify, did not weigh in. What was the situation there with Alex?
That was basically a situation where, right before weigh-ins, we just kind of made a call as a staff that he was not close enough to weight, and we kind of wanted to save some embarrassment. So we didn't have him weigh in because he would not have made weight, and obviously that's a tough moment for that kid, and that's a hard lesson to learn. But we talked afterwards about kind of some changes that need to be made, and I hope that went to heart with him. And obviously, the proof's going to be in the pudding. But Madrigal's hard back at work, and we're looking forward to good things for him. And obviously, that's the situation you never want to have happen. But a positive can come out of it, and I don't know if I want to bring this up again, but we did have a similar situation. And the kid ended up placing the following year, and that I gave him that exact example. I said, you can turn this into a positive, and I said, nobody will remember that you didn't make weight at the national tournament. I said, you can change the ending of the story. And that's what he's going to work hard to do, and we're going to do what we can to make sure that ending is changed so that everybody's talking about Madrigal's an All-American and national champion versus what the story is right now.
Now, as we look forward to next year, you get the 5 wrestlers who didn't go. We're all freshmen. Then you're returning 3 wrestlers who have been in the show. Of course, you lose Mikey Hayes, you lose Deco. This is going to be an interesting offseason coming up. To where's the development with all the guys that were in the lineup that were freshmen? You work with the upper weights, especially like Will Hilliard. Where's his development got to go? Antonio Agee got thrown to the wolves this year at a tough weight class as a true freshman. Larry Early getting situated into being part of the program. Kevin Budak was pulled mid-season. Steve Simpson was a trooper this year. At 125. There's a lot of improvement to be had, but there's also a lot of experience coming back. Even though half the lineup returning doesn't have nationals experience yet. Yeah,
and obviously those guys that have been to nationals, we kind of expect them to be the leaders of the team and step up. And when people aren't doing things right, we expect those guys to kind of say something because now they've been there, now they've seen it. So now it's not just coming from the coaches. And you can talk to any coach or look at any program. It's the programs that have success. It's when the guys on the team are the ones policing themselves and taking care of business versus the coaches, because the coach can only do so much, only say so much, and especially when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, there's just kind of a natural, I already know everything.
Well, 31-year-olds in case of Beasley.
Or Beasley, who's a little bit older. But we're hoping that kind of trickles down. And like I said, we're in a 2-week off period right now. Next week we start we go back to an 8-hour week, and we're just trying to get back at it and get these guys better. And like I said, some of these guys do have experience. You mentioned Will Hilliard. He'd be the kid that the Northern Iowa heavyweight. I think he was either in the All-American round a couple of years ago, or he's pretty close to placing. I know that. So he beat a solid kid, and you want to take positives from the season and build on that. And It's just basically getting them to understand. I kind of use this phrase a lot. Is kind of learning how to stay in your lane. You see a lot of things on Flow Wrestling or wherever at the national tournament that may not necessarily be what's best for you, but get the 3 or 4 things that you're good at and get good at those things. And once you're in a situation where you have confidence in your abilities and that it doesn't matter who I'm wrestling, I'm going to stick to the 3 or 4 things I do. Those are the people that have success. I mean, you could look at all your national champs and all your All-Americans. I mean, on their feet, most of them are sticking to 3 or 4 things, to be honest with you. And they have a hold where they can get out from bottom. They're good hand fighters, and they have a ride where they can at least ride people. And probably some of your elite guys on top were able to turn people. So those are the things we want the kids to focus on. You don't necessarily need to be a jack of all trades, but the trades you're good at, we want you to be excellent at. So that's kind of what we want to do. And obviously we're looking forward to this summer. These guys sticking around and continuing to get better. We got university nationals, university duels, summer training. So it's a good, productive summer. It's a busy summer. Sometimes a lot of outsiders think, oh, season's over, so you guys got a vacation till season starts up again, and that's not even close to the case. It's we're constantly trying to develop these guys so that when November rolls around again, hopefully we are improving upon what happened last year.
One thing we're moving forward to is this upcoming weekend. We'll just change gears a little bit as one of our alums, Chris McCotty, is set to make his MMA debut right at the Conson Center on Saturday, April 1st with the Sparty KA Fight League. Okay, there's been a number of Old Dominion Wrestling graduates that have gone into the world of mixed martial arts, but none have been a 2-time All-American like McCotty. So I know what your wheelhouse, probably not the MMA, but this is kind of cool that he's going to make his MMA debut on campus.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's right there on campus. I think pretty much just the entire team's going to be there. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on the road recruiting, so I'm going to be the one guy that's not going to be there. I'm kind of the oddball, but I told Chris I'd support him, and he was supposed to have T-shirts, but he never got that ready. But I told him I would buy a bunch of T-shirts from him if he had those. But
he's got hair product, but no T-shirts.
He does have hair product, but this is something he's always wanted to get into, and he's mentioned that for a long, long time. And I know he goes down to Virginia Beach and he trains a lot there, and he grabs some of the guys in here and trains. And even on some of his off days when he was competing, he'd come in and kind of grap around and do some MMA stuff. So this is one of the things that we saw coming. And I think a couple months ago, the guy who was originally supposed to fight was like 190 pounds and like 6'5". I can't remember. He told me the guy he was supposed to fight. And I was kind of like, I don't know if that's a good idea, Chris. But they finally got a guy that's around the same weight as Chris. And, I know the guys are pretty excited about it, and they're looking forward to it. And I know he's going to have a big cheering section. That's one thing I can tell you.
Yeah, and anybody in the area interested in checking out the fights on Saturday, April 1st, doors open 5:30 at the TED, SpartyKAFightLeague.com. Tickets available at whynottix.com. Let's see, what is it? The official title is at, whynottix.com. Those of you who follow ODU football should know whynottix.com and other things. But Coach Dixon, as we close up the regular season, moving into the off season, we got again the golf tournament May 5th at noon, Sewell's Point. Information on whole sponsorships, playing, participating foursomes at MJ Dixon at ODU.edu. And final thoughts as we head into this off season.
We're looking forward to a, like I said, good, productive summer. We're trying to get these guys better. And, we're working on a lot of things to make sure that we're putting forward a better product than, obviously what happened. The dual meet season did not go the way we wanted it to. But I think the tournament showed a glimpse of kind of what we see in practice every day. Now our job is to try and get these guys to be a little bit more consistent. So that comes with confidence. That comes with experience. And that's what we're going to do. These guys do have some freestyle competitions that we're going to make sure they're wrestling in. So hopefully some of these guys can get some international experience as well. But, you know, you're only going to get better at wrestling by wrestling. So we're going to make sure that happens. And don't forget, you got Cubs opening day coming up. So Cubs repeat World Series champs.
Yeah, and then we got to grow that mustache back, Mike. Come on.
We'll see.
I went the whole. I went clean shaven as soon as I got back from nationals. It was 4 weeks in a row. I'm like, all right, beard's gone, and now everybody's like, why did you shave it off? I was like, dude, I got to get some type of sun there because I'm a pale white man, like very pale, and there's not a whole lot of sun here in Minnesota, so had to get some conditioner into that. So it'll grow back when I'm back in Virginia in April. So anyway, Coach Dixon, thanks for the time, and we'll see you around, just not on the golf course.
Well, I'll be on the golf course. I just won't be swinging any clubs.
Yeah, you'll be driving that cart around.
That's right.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.